So today we're going to take a look at the 2024 GMC Sierra 1500 Elevation. For those who've seen some of my other videos, you might note that I used to drive a 2023 Toyota Tacoma TRD off-road. I recently replaced that with this truck. I was looking for something that was a little more tech advanced, a lot more room, were kind of the main issues there. So stay tuned. I'll talk to you about some of the things I like about the truck, some of the things I don't like about the truck. I have a separate video where I'll post about some of the things that I have done to the truck as far as aftermarket upgrades. So stay tuned. As always, if you like this video, click the button below and let's get into it. So let's start by taking a look at the truck overall. This again is a 2024 GMC Sierra 1500 Elevation model. As you notice, the elevation badging has been removed. That's one of the aftermarket, so to speak, things that I did to the truck after I got it. But it's beautiful. I love the blue color. I love the size. It is pretty much perfect. It is quite a change from the Toyota Tacoma that I had. This thing is enormous, but it's that space that I was really looking for. I wanted to be able to carry 4 or 5 full-size adults comfortably on longer trips, and this truck definitely fits the bill there. There really is nothing to me that stands out that I don't like about it. I think it is one of the best looking, certainly best looking full-size trucks. On the driver's side, of course, soft touch, places to put your elbows and your arms, the same inlays, wood there. Plenty of cup holder space here. Pretty good material. It's a little bit flexible. I know some people like to complain and say, oh, this is flimsy, this is just crap. It's not. It's flexible so that you can fit larger bottles in there. Doesn't feel cheaply made. Everything is very tightly put together here, so fit and finish wise, no complaints from me. Okay, inside the truck with it started, you can see the nice big screens. I really like the center screen. I think it's very clear. GMC uses a very interesting kind of split screen here for what you have with Apple CarPlay. So you've got your maps, you can have a clock, you can have your whatever music you're playing up. It also has Google integrated into it, so you have the big Google Maps and some other Google functions in there. I honestly don't use it very much. I typically go with Apple CarPlay, so I appreciate it being in there, but it's well integrated. Works very well. You have all of your buttons here for lane keep, auto start stop, open the back to the bed, drop all the windows down, hazard lights, those sorts of things. All of your climate controls are in here. Again, very, very simple to use, very straightforward. A good amount of controls on the steering wheel as well for your cruise control, heated steering wheel, and all your other controls to control the screen there. Everything is pretty easy to access. You have all of your controls for drive modes, 4-wheel drive. This particular model has 2 high and 4 high. It does not have 4 low. I'm not driving it off-road that much, so I'm not doing any serious off-road trail driving. My driving is getting to a hiking trail on a dirt road, so it has everything I need. It does have off-road modes in there, so it does perform pretty well for what I need. Looking at the center console space itself, you've got 2 wide cup holders, a couple little pockets here. If I had to have a complaint about it, I would say this is lined with lined with rubber, which is very nice. It keeps things from rattling. These are hard plastic. Anything you put in there is going to rattle, and rattles drive me crazy. So, unfortunately, every area didn't come. This is, again, lined in rubber, so it's a very nice surface, soft touch surfaces here. But these little containers are prone to rattling, so I find that I don't really ever keep anything there. They are prone to getting dusty as well, which drives me crazy. But other than that, there's plenty of storage space. This little center console does pick up. It's not terribly deep, but you can fit a fair number of things in there. And then if you pull this seat up, there is a whole nother storage space down here. I don't actually use it because, as you can see, pulling that seat up as I just did is kind of a pain. Okay, getting into the back of the truck. Again, same soft touch materials, very nice, very comfortable. Everything seems to be put together quite well. But again, this is part of the reason I got this truck. It is just absolutely enormous. So if I shut the door here, I am just over 6'1", and I have tons of space. I can cross my legs, I can sit completely comfortably in here. There's just an overabundance of room. Truly tons of space. If you have kids, if you carry around full-size adults, this is definitely the truck for you. And it is such a difference between the mid-size trucks and the full-size trucks. This is where the full-size trucks are really shine. Again, from a headroom perspective, no problem here. I'm just a little over 6'1". I have plenty of space. I can stretch out. I don't feel even slightly cramped inside this truck. It's like sitting in a concert hall. Not really, but you get the point. It's big inside here. So taking a quick look under the hood, this is the 2.7 liter 4-cylinder turbo. I get asked a lot by people, what the heck did you buy a 4-cylinder in a truck for? For me, I didn't necessarily want the V8. Everybody has it. It is a good engine. It's been around for a long time. You can get about 19 miles per gallon on the highway, but you can only get about 14, 15 in the city, and you get a combined of about 17, which just isn't quite high enough for me. So for me, the biggest factor in choosing this truck, or one of the biggest factors in choosing the 2.7 liter in particular, were the power numbers. So you're looking at 310 horsepower again, 430 foot-pounds of torque. If you compare that to the V8, which is one of the other options, it's a little less horsepower, but quite a bit more torque. If you compare it to the 3-liter Turbomax turbo diesel, you're looking at, I think it's the exact same horsepower now, 310. That one has more torque, but it's also almost a $2,800 upgrade. And just being realistic, to find the configuration that engine comes in, really you're looking at about a $7,000 upgrade overall to find it in the proper configuration. So this one kind of checked all the boxes. For those who have done more of a heavy mechanical review of this motor, and those who have seen those reviews, you'll know that it's quite technologically advanced and pretty impressive. The 4-cylinder motor is pretty overbuilt in general, and for me, that just gave me some comfort, reassurance that maybe it's built to last a long time. Hopefully that's what that means. So far, from a driving engine perspective, I have 3,200 miles on it. I haven't had a single problem. However, I will get to some of the things that I dislike. One of those is a driving characteristic that we'll talk about here in just a moment. So those are some of my general thoughts about the Sierra. Let's now talk about some of the things I like, some of the things I dislike, and then be sure to watch my video about some of the things I've done aftermarket to make this truck a little bit more my own. So let's take the truck for a little spin, and I will talk to you about some of the things that I like, a couple of things I dislike, and then, like I said, be sure to watch the video to see what changes in aftermarket things I've done. So some of the things that I like. This truck is very, very easy to drive. It is surprisingly comfortable for what it is. I thought that it may not be as comfortable as it is, but certainly for long trips, this is probably one of the best trucks that I have had the pleasure of driving. The motor is relatively powerful, like we talked about. The transmission is very smooth and smooth shifting, which makes it really, really nice for long drives. Another thing I really like, again, like I said, is the space. It has just an abundance of space in it. And within that space, kind of your driving experience, it is fairly quiet. So because it is comfortable, because it is quiet, because the transmission shifts smooth, it tends to be a very it doesn't wear on you when you drive. So it's a pretty easy truck to drive. Looking at a couple of things that I dislike about the truck, for all the things I like about the motor and its tech and the power, it is not a smooth engine. Unfortunately, it just is not a truck that has the smoothness that you might expect from the V8, the 5.3 liter V8, or the 3-liter Turbomax turbo diesel. This can be a little bit rough, and that's somewhat unfortunate because I don't think it necessarily needs to be, but it is a little bit rough, and it has kind of a range that it functions in. So if you're in the 1800 to 2500 RPM range, it's very comfortable. When you start to venture up above that 4,000 RPM range, it just gets rough, and the roughness combined with the 4-cylinder sound is not the most appealing sound or driver experience. With that said, though, it still drives fine. It's just fine. So it's not necessarily a deal breaker. It is just something to be aware of in this truck that does typically cause it to be not as smooth and comfortable as it could be. The only other thing I've really noticed that I'd say is something that I don't like about the truck, and perhaps it's something that they will correct through software updates or other recalls or updates, and that really is the tendency of the transmission and drivetrain in general to want to lurch. And by that I mean if you are pulling into a garage or pulling into a space, or if you're backing up to hook up your boat, it has a tendency when you are just coasting along and maybe just inching along at, like, I don't know however fast you're going when you're pulling up to something, it tends to want to lurch. And by that I mean it will just kind of lurch forward all of a sudden without warning. It is a bit of a concern. It's a little bit disconcerting because I always feel like I notice it when I'm pulling into my garage, and I just don't want to pull in and hit the wall, and suddenly the truck lurches forward a little bit. It isn't, again, a major defect, a major problem. It's just, again, something to be aware of. And I find it on these kind of bigger cars that have smaller engines, because the engines are kind of so wound up to provide so much power. They're just, it's like a little bit out of control. It just wants to provide so much power all the time, and it's always there in its abundance. So just something to be aware of. Diving in a little bit more on why I switched from the Toyota Tacoma TRD Off-Road, which was a 2023, to this 24 Sierra. One of the key factors in that, like I said, was space. Also, the other key factors was tech. Did I want to wait for the new 2024 Toyota Tacoma, or did I want to go with something a little bit different? I chose something different, and a lot of that was based on the early reviews that I saw on the Tacoma. They hadn't really solved some of the things that for me were big needs. I needed a little bit bigger back seat. It's just like, come on, Toyota, can you give me another 4 inches in the back, 4 more inches of space, just so there's a little bit more comfort in the back. And unfortunately, they weren't able to do that in the 2024. And then you look at other things like the tech, the motor tech in particular. It's a 4-cylinder turbo just like this. The big difference is that I have nearly 100 foot-pounds of torque more in this truck than you get on the new Tacoma. It's fine. I mean, the horsepower is the same as the prior one. It's not a huge torque upgrade. Yes, you get more torque with the turbo at the low end, but it's just not that much more powerful. And then some of the fit and finish quality issues I've seen in some of the videos. Now, of course, everybody complains about everything, so it's easy to find fault with anything if you're looking for it, no matter what you're driving. I think that I've been pretty impressed with this truck so far, and when I compared the two together, it was fairly easy, honestly, for me to choose this. Some people may not want this because of the size. I wanted the size, and I feel like I got a good mixture. I got the size of this truck with tech and the technologically advanced engine, the things that I really wanted, both inside as well as within the motor itself. So pretty happy with the choice, even with a few kind of rough edges. And the same thing on the new Toyota Tacoma. The motor is not, it's not smooth. It makes strange noises. It's interesting, so you have to kind of pick and choose what you want, but so far I've been pretty happy with this one. I know some people are going to ask, well, how's the gas mileage? What do you see in gas mileage? That gas mileage in this truck is kind of, what's the saying? It's a riddle wrapped inside an enigma. It's interesting to me. Real world gas mileage for me, is the average that I've had since ownership of the truck, is 19.5 miles per gallon. Now that's what I'll say is 80-20. 80% suburban / city driving, 20% highway driving. So not bad, for what it is. It is interesting, though. I've taken drives to Lake Tahoe from the San Francisco Bay Area, for those who know where that is. Driving up Highway 80 from the Bay Area to Sacramento, it's pretty flat. I can average 24 miles per gallon. Of course, not as much when I'm driving up at altitude to Tahoe, which is up at 7,000 feet. But overall, for that trip, out and back, I get about 20 to 21 miles per gallon on those trips, so pretty good. What is strange about the gas mileage at times is that I can take the same trip twice, going the same direction twice, so there and back, and I'll get different gas mileage each time I drive. Sometimes I'll get 20 miles per gallon, sometimes I'll get 18 miles per gallon, sometimes I'll get 23 miles per gallon, and so far I haven't been able to pinpoint exactly what the difference is in my driving. I feel like I'm driving the same. Sometimes there's more traffic. I drove to Tahoe once when it was snowing, so yes, those can make a difference. But generally speaking, driving the same trip, the same mileage, the same conditions, same weather, twice, you should get the same results or similar results. And there's been a fair amount of variation in those trips. So still something to kind of figure out. I don't know exactly why that is. But the big benefit to this truck and the 2.7 liter turbo is that no matter what I do in the 5.3 liter V8, I'm not going to get 22, 23, 24 miles per gallon. That's just never going to happen. It's not a possibility. I can get it in the Turbomax diesel, but I had to spend $7,000 more to get that. So I think that makes this a pretty solid choice. And then people will grumble about gas mileage and say, oh, it's not great, it's this or it's that. Typically, gas mileage has to do with driving conditions, the way that you drive. Are you heavy-footed? Are you driving 85 miles an hour on the freeway all the time? The only observation I have had about gas mileage in this truck is it is very, very speed sensitive. And I think that is probably due to the big turbocharger that's on this. You know, everybody has commented that they like the whistling of the turbocharger, and I'm no different. It is kind of a cool sound. But I also listen to the turbocharger, and every time I hear it come on, what pops into my head is that's the sound of the gas sucking out of my truck. Because every time that turbocharger's on, it's churning away through all the gas I have, and it does seem to make a pretty significant difference if you're on that turbo all the time. If you can drive a little more conservatively, that's where I've seen some of the better gas mileage results come up. So it's up to everybody's driving. I would say it's different for everybody. But I would expect if you bought this truck, you can pretty much bank on 20, 21 is your average. You know, towards the 19, 20 if you're city or suburb. If you're highway all the time, fairly long, flat highway driving, you should be able to achieve 23 miles per gallon, no problem at all. And that's similar to the results that I've had. So that is about it for this review of my new daily driver. I will post videos from time to time as new things occur or new things come up or I have new thoughts about it. But I appreciate you listening today. Again, if you want to see more videos like this and more reviews, please click the like button down below. And hope everybody has a great day.